Gaza militants carried out an attack on southern Israel across 22 different locations and claimed the lives of at least 1,500 people. Israel claims the majority of these people were unarmed civilians, and while some civilians were certainly killed, which is tragic, there is a problem with the Israeli narrative. They have presented this attack as a terror attack on civilians. A good example of this is the claim that militants attacked and killed 250 people in a mass shooting at a concert. But we are about to expose and debunk that claim, and we're gonna do it using the New York Times. I want to make clear that I am not justifying or condoning this attack. I am simply challenging the narrative. Gaza militants launched their attack. Paragliding militants are flying over the wall, heading in different directions. Their targets were military bases. We know this because of dozens of videos showing militants storming these buildings and capturing soldiers and equipment. 3 miles from the Gaza border is one of these bases, the Gaza Regiment military base along the 232 road. There was a music festival taking place right down the road from the base. After the attack was completed, militants got into vehicles and continued their attack by driving along the major roads heading towards other bases. This is how the militants found themselves at the concert. Before the militants arrived, the concert goers had heard the gunshots and were panicking. They then started to leave the concert, but they couldn't take their cars because the road was now being blocked by Israeli police and security trying to cut off the Gaza militants. This is when the concert goers began running away into an open field because they couldn't get into their cars and drive away. When the militants arrived, they exchanged fire with security, and this is why the parked cars along the road were riddled with bullets. To be clear, civilians did die. They were tragically caught in the crossfire, but they were not the target, and they certainly were not killed in a mass shooting.
Now, there were hostages taken by fighters, and this is truly terrible. They should be returned safely and quickly, but there is so much evidence showing us the fighters were not there to terrorize civilians. Listen to this Israeli woman talk about how fighters were kind to her.
ואז אחד אומר לי באנגלית, אל תדאגי, אני מוסלמי, אנחנו לא נפגע בכם. לחץ.
She says they even asked her for permission to eat one of her bananas.
רואה על השיש בננות, אומר לי, אפשר לאכול אחת? אתה לא כן, אתה יכול לאכול אחת.
Think about that. Armed gunmen in her home asking her for permission to eat one of her bananas. And this woman told Israeli media they treated her humanely.
הם לא מתעללים בנו, הם מתנהגים אלינו בצורה מאוד אנושית, זה אומר שהם שומרים עלינו. כן, מה זה אומר אנושית? שומרים עלינו, הם נותנים לנו לשתות פה ושם, שהם רואים שאנחנו בלחץ, הם מרגיעים אותנו. הייתה תחושה מאוד מאוד מפחידה, אבל אף אחד לא התנהג אלינו באלימות.
She then goes on to say that the hostages she was with were only killed when Israeli soldiers arrived and got into a firefight with the Palestinians.
על האדמה בחוץ, ממש כצאן הטבח, מול הירי של הימ"מ שלנו והמחבלים.
הטרוריסטים ירו בהם?
לא. הם נהרגו בחילופי ירי, תבין שהיה חילופי ירי מאוד מאוד קשים.
זאת אומרת, יכול להיות שזה כוחותינו ירו בהם? כשניסו לפסל את החוטפים, את החמאס?
חיסלו את כולם, כולל בני ערובה.
It was a battle between soldiers on both sides, with civilians caught in the crossfire. Which leads me to ask, what is the difference between this and what's happening right now in Gaza? Yet Western media seems convinced that Gazan militants committed terrorism, while the Israeli army is engaging in justified defense. The solution to this issue is not to escalate the violence or to prioritize the dead of one group of people over another. Solution is to end all hostilities. There should be calls for an immediate ceasefire, humanitarian aid to both sides, and an escalation in negotiations to end the occupation, establish an independent Palestinian state, and create a just and long-lasting peace between both Israelis and Palestinians.